Well, welcome back to our season of Vocations interviews. And I have with me a reader in training, and I'll ask her to introduce herself now before we begin the interview.
Hello, my name is Maggie Ball. I am a second year, just coming to the second year of reader training. I am in my secular job a trainer and technical support officer in a South African food business, training all aspects of food safety and food hygiene.
Lovely, thank you and welcome, Maggie. Thank you very much for being part of this. I'm hoping to help those who are exploring their vocation, wanting to respond to God's call, to be able to find some answers as they listen to some of these interviews. So I'll begin with the first question, Maggie. When did you first feel called to ministry in the Church of England, and how did you know God was calling you?
I first felt the calling. I've always believed in God. I've always felt there's been a bigger force than anything you could believe in, actually. And I was never a regular church attender until 2011, when I had 3 bereavements and a loss of job, all within that 1 year. And in October of 2011, I decided to get confirmed. And it was a very easy decision at that time to make. It just felt so natural and so normal. And people around me also encouraged me to get confirmed. And there was a very, very strong call from God the night I got confirmed. I have never felt anything like it in my life. Such a warm, loving feeling.
Right, okay. And what was your initial response, and what were the first things you did when you realized God was calling you?
My initial response was I prayed about it and I panicked, probably panicked and then prayed, to be quite honest. But after a time of settling myself, I spoke to my priest, to my friends, my family, those around me that I knew and trusted, that I knew would give me the right answers. Because to be quite honest, I thought I was going mad in some cases. And I would spend time in our local church on my own. And I felt right at home. And I would pray in church. I would ask questions, say, God, what are you doing? What do you want from me? And it was so, so lovely, but so scary.
So, feeling panicked, feeling scared, how did you begin the process then? How did it begin for you?
How did I begin the process? I talked to my priest and my family, and I then was told by my priest to go and do a little bit more digging. So I decided to go and join an ALM group who was going to be authorised lay ministers. And I have to admit, for the first 4 weeks, I felt well out of my depth. The language was different, because remember, I wasn't a regular churchgoer. Following the liturgy, everything seemed mumbo jumbo. And then suddenly one night I got home from Spalding, where we'd done the ALM training, and things started to fall into place. And when we used to go back for ALM training every Wednesday night, I used to get called the devil's advocate sometimes, because I would always think about a thing and reflect and then go back the next week and say, well, what if? Because there's no harm in asking. And it was very much affirmed by people, even in that ALM group, that there was something more than ALM.
Okay, so describe the process of responding to your calling for us.
It's the most humbling experience I've ever had. And in 2013, I was taking a friend of mine to King's Lynn Hospital to see her husband, who was at end of life. And as I walked into King's Lynn Hospital with her, I immediately was just struck with the word chaplain. And so therefore, I said, "What's a chaplain?" I had no idea at this point. I thought I'd had to be, for anybody to be a chaplain, you would have to be ordained. On responding to that, I then looked into chaplaincy even more, and you don't have to be ordained. And since then, I've was commissioned in 2016 as an East of England ambulance chaplain for the East of England Ambulance Service. So that's a very strong calling for me. It's about acting on what your gut instinct and what God is talking you to. It's about listening. It's active listening. I did go forward for a DAP, which is a Diocese Advisory Panel, and as I felt called to ordination. Totally wrong. Totally wrong. It's like having the frequency on a radio wrong, you know. You get the crackling and you don't get the correct answer to it. So what I did, I got completely thrown back from that one, but my heart kept saying, keep going, keep going. So as I hadn't got any university degrees or anything like that, I was talking to my interim priest, who said to me, well, what about ward visiting at Peterborough City Hospital? So I am also a ward visitor on the chaplaincy side, voluntary at Peterborough City Hospital. But again, it was nagging in the back of my mind, if I want to pursue this, I need to get off my backside and do something. I need to be active. So I was looking one day through some bits on my laptop, and I came across a foundation degree of chaplaincy and theology at York St John's University. I leapt with joy. I applied, not knowing that I was going to be accepted, and that was the best day ever. I'd done 2 years at York St John's. I thoroughly enjoyed the company of the people, the learning, everything. And that, I believe, has set me on the road to come to Lincoln to do training for lay reader ministry.
Okay. So you have been working with Sally Buck. You've been through a process of discernment with her, and you are now in your second year of your reader training.
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay, so what other practical things did you do when you realized that God was calling you to do something more than being a faithful disciple?
It's frightening when you first hear that call, I got to admit. And I attended vocation days at Lincoln. I went on quiet days, prayerful quiet days. And when you're doing this discernment, you need to do this. It's very important to do this because it stands you in good stead for the future. And also on retreats, I've been a couple of times now to Italy on retreat to Assisi. So it all is part of the journey. And also get a spiritual director and see a vocations director as well, because they are worth their weight in gold. And it does stand you in good stead for the future when God is calling you to more intimate conversations so as you can follow that ministry.
Helps you to be more attuned, I think is what you're saying. You're more tuned in to God. You're more tuned in. You're more listening and able to hear that call, and it becomes clearer.
That's right. That's right.
So, what would you say to someone who thinks God may be calling them to reader ministry. Can you suggest something practical that they could do, first of all? And then there's a second part to this question, is what would you say if that person thinks they're ill-equipped or they're doubting whether what they are hearing is right? So the first thing is, what would you say to practical things would you say that they should do if they feel called to read a ministry? And what if they think they're not well equipped for it?
As I said earlier, talk to people, your priest, your parish priest, your family, friends that you trust. Your priest is probably one of the most important people that will point you in the right direction too. Explore the avenues as reader, because if you read books, there's a very good book written by Sally Book and 2 or 3 other people a couple of years ago that gives you the strands of the ministry, the different dimensions that you can do. It's a teaching, preaching faith, proclaiming the good news and nurturing people. So don't be afraid of it, because it's something that you are working with. It's a tool. And it's where the strands of clergy and lay are bound together, in my eyes, in working together as a ministry and producing things. I mean, I have had some wonderful privileges to doing meetings. I lead prayers, and then I also help with confirmation groups, which is an absolute privilege to listen to people on their faith journey. And sometimes I have to stop and pinch myself to make sure that I am actually doing what God is asking me to do, because it's a wonderful ministry. It really is. And the second part of that question, what would you say to someone? If it's possible, listen to your head and your heart and go with what God is asking you to do. If your head and your heart is in tune with God, you're not going wrong. Don't be afraid. Just be obedient. Honestly, it's the most amazing journey I've ever had, and to feel that God is calling you to a ministry of lay reader, and hopefully I will be going on to funeral ministry alongside that with my chaplaincy role. That will be another fantastic thing for me to do. So there's lots of scope out there. Don't be afraid. Go and venture, have a look, ask questions. It's wonderful.
And I think there's somebody says, if God calls, God equips, doesn't he, as well, which you have found that he has done.
Yeah, yeah.
Now,
I always say, sorry.
You carry on.
I always say that I always have a toolbox, and you don't know until you look in that toolbox as to what tools you need and what you're equipped with. And when you delve into that box, you find all sorts of things. And if it's in that toolbox, use it.
Excellent. Now, I think there is one final thing that you would like to leave us with.
Yes, 2 things that has helped me through my ministry, coming late into church in my age, but 2 things that I hold on to very dearly. The first thing is the reading from Luke about the road to Emmaus. I read that as I was authorised as an ALM, and that will stick with me all of my life. It's something I go back to, I reflect on, and it is so me, and it is so ministry. And the final thing I'd like to say, Sonia, is the last 2 lines in the hymn, When I Survey the Wondrous Cross, by Isaac Watts. It reads, love so amazing, so divine, demands my soul, my life, my all. And I am very prepared, and I hope I am giving that to God every day of my life.
Maggie, thank you very much for sharing a bit of your journey. It's wonderful how God calls us when we're not even expecting it, and how it is that you have responded. God bless you and thank you.